keep your head. There's absolutely no reason to get upset about any of this, right? It doesn't matter.
It's best to let the unreasonable opposition speak, because they manifest themselves as unreasonable, and then everyone can see it. And so that's part of the reason that you want free speech, right?
Piece of shit! Transphobic 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 piece of shit!
Against marginalized communities. Trans people do not need
Piece of shit! Transphobic piece of shit! Transphobic piece of shit! Transphobic piece of shit! Transphobic piece of shit! This is where we draw the line. 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 Where we draw the line. This is where we draw the line. Let him speak. Let him speak. Let him speak. Let him speak. Let him
not accomplishing anything.
Cis voices are not a proxy for trans people's speech.
So one of the things that I would ask all of you in this room is to think hard before
Fight
you
for trans liberation. Do not listen to Jordan Peterson and his transphobic
urge the
bigotry.
activists act for the groups that they purport to represent, because they don't. They have no legitimacy.
No speech for Jordan Peterson. 41% of trans youth in Metro consider suicide. That is not being debated. Jordan Peterson.
This is absolutely pathetic. You know? And you look around and you see people in the room who come to university to learn and are being taught that this is actually the way that you
No speech for Jordan Peterson.
your political
Jordan
agenda
Peterson
forward.
is a known transphobe with a history of denying the fundamental humanity of trans and non-binary people.
Incomprehensible to me.
41% of trans youth have attempted or considered suicide, providing a that no one can consider.
The other thing that you might think about, those of you who come to listen, is that this will undoubtedly be broadcast on YouTube, and there'll be hundreds of thousands of people watching. From my experience has been so far that the kinds of protests that this is, it is typical of this, attract far more negative attention than positive attention. And so that's just as well. So it's not such a bad thing to let this sort of thing play itself out.
Free speech. Hate speech is not free speech. No freedom for hate speech.
There's nothing about it that's the least bit on as individuals.
By transphobic bigotry, a platform.
People in the activist classes, you know, they learn that they can memorize 10 rather appalling statements and learn how to make noise, but that actually constitutes a way to advance civilized discourse and to make it a positive improvement in the world. And they're being done a disservice by the educational institutions. So the other thing I would really recommend too is like keep your head. There's absolutely no reason to get upset about any of this, right? It doesn't matter. I've had a lot of chance to speak on. I'm not in any danger of being silenced.
You are not obnoxious or trans people's voices.
You really want to make sure that you don't let people who are causing trouble poke you and become stupid. It's a big mistake. Because a lot of people who are protesting and they're theoretically trying to make the world a better place are trying to provoke a very negative response. And you don't want to be the one to give them what they want. It's a big mistake. You know, when I was...
No freedom for hate speech. No freedom for hate speech.
When I was at the free speech rally in Toronto, you know, a lot of people have watched that online now. And it got pretty tense. And if anybody that was there to promote free speech had made a mistake and done something aggressive or violent and having to be filmed and broadcast on YouTube, all of this would turn out very differently. And so when you're in a tense situation like this,
No freedom for hate speech.
you really have to watch what you do because what you do can be magnified greatly and cause a rippling effect out into the broader society. And you don't want to be. Yes, you're in that trouble. You don't want to be the person who brings that about.
41% of trans youth attempt or consider suicide.
No freedom at all! No freedom is no freedom at all!
Free speech matters! 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 Free speech matters!
Freedom for hate speech. It's not free speech.
So I guess the other thing to think about is that none of the other panelists came, so they were intimidated into
No speech for trans girls.
not participate because of your reputation.
but
There was
and
no
I suppose in
organized
some
harassment
sense,
campaign. There was no organized harassment campaign. Their public information
Go home,
was
Peterson. Go home.
we did not leak their public
this being shut down, but it isn't shut down at all because, like I said, it's going to be publicized everywhere.
Go home, Peterson.
You are not a victim. You are not a victim. You are not a
That's
victim.
true. I'm not
You
a
are
victim.
not a victim. You are not a victim.
Is that once you start to regard yourself as a victim, you look for a perpetrator. And as soon as you look for a perpetrator, you look for someone that it's okay to hurt. It's really not a good thing. Okay, I got an idea. Everyone can move to the camera because everybody's standing on sides. So what I would recommend perhaps is that all of you who want to hear me talk, leave, go outside, and I'll come outside and talk to you. And then somebody carefully, and whoever wants to stay on these sides can. But they're going to close this down, so let's try that, okay?
If you're faced by unreasonable opposition, it's best to let the unreasonable opposition speak, because they manifest themselves as unreasonable. and then everyone can see it. And so that's part of the reason that you want free speech, right? Is you want people...
I think we're better.
Well, at least they're at the back of the crowd this time.
You know what? Come on, let's sort of insulate Dr. Peterson.
Good idea.
Security's not helping. Sorry.
No, and security can't help, you know, because no matter what...
this is not their job.
Well, and no matter what they do, they're wrong.
Right.
If they let things go on, then they're wrong. And if they intervene and they cause trouble for any students, no matter who the students are or what they're doing, they're wrong then too. So...
Shut the fuck up!
No, guys, don't shout the guys, don't get in fights.
It's okay, listen.
Guys, just everyone.
He's just about hoarse.
That's
He's
true.
going to take care of himself soon enough. All right, so I can tell you a little bit about why I was opposed to Bill C-16. And there's a variety of reasons. I think the most important one is that it's the first piece of Canadian legislation that's ever been put forward that actually requires people to use a particular set of words. Now, there is other legislation that does govern to some degree what you can't say. So, for example, you can't incite a crime, and that's perfectly logical. It's a reasonable restriction on free speech. But we've never had a piece of legislation ever that would require you to use a certain kind of vocabulary. And regardless of what that vocabulary is, and the fact that it happens to be about transgendered terminology, hypothetically, is almost beside the point, as far as I'm concerned. You know, this all focused on this particular issue, and it had to focus on some issue. But this isn't the issue that's at the bottom of it. It's just that complex things manifest themselves in very particular locations, and this just happens to be the location that this is manifesting itself in. And finally, you can see too that the vast majority of people, for example, men who are biologically male, who present themselves as male, or who identify as male, who present themselves as male, are also heterosexual. 95% of them, perhaps 98% of them.
Excuse me, sir. Sorry, I just had a question. I believe it was explicitly stated to you that you should be staying off of those topics. We kind of want to hear your views on free speech, but we don't want to hear your views on gender identity and stuff. I thought it was made clear.
Yeah, we're no longer in that event now. We're outside.
At the same time, I'd appreciate it if you just stayed on topic.
I don't really think it's up to you to decide that.
I think
So, anyways, I can tell you a little bit about why these attempts to shut people down are being made, because you need to know this. So, as far as I've been able to determine, this kind of protest is an expression of a philosophy that's grounded partly in postmodernism and partly in Marxism. Now, the postmodern element is basically this. There's no such thing as genuine individual identity. What there is group identity. And you, like it or not, only have the interests of your group. And the whole world is nothing but a battleground between groups of different interests. There's no dialogue. There's no possibility of talking between the groups. It's just a power stage where combat has to take place. And so the reason that speakers with whom the radical postmodernists and the Marxists don't agree are denied a platform is because those people do not believe from a philosophical position that dialogue can bring consensus. And all that's left if you forego that particular principle is this. And this is only where it starts. You know, the fact is that you're all pretty damn civilized. And thank God for that. Because if there were enough fools in the crowd, especially those who are intent on violence, this would turn out very differently. Right. And we do not want to go down that pathway. It's a big mistake. We've been down that pathway many, many times. The question was, had we called the police and had them removed, would have that been a failure? And I think the answer to that is, there's no point in it, right? There's no reason to assume that this is a bad thing. It's noisy and it's annoying, but that's fine. You gotta let things, you gotta follow what you believe to be true, right? And don't worry about it, and then let things happen and see what happens, because it's perfectly possible that if you're trying to do the right thing, and you're trying to speak properly, that whatever happens around you is a partial consequence of that, and that it's a good thing. So we'll see. We'll have weeks after this event to analyze its consequences. And so far, all of those of you that are there to listen to me talk, you're peaceful and reasonable, and you got a chance to show that to hundreds of thousands of people. So good. This is a good thing, not a bad thing.
How do we get these people to understand the dialogue?
How do we get these people to understand that dialogue leads to consensus? You cannot make people who don't listen. You can't. They have to decide to listen on their own. But you do that by listening. You show them. You engage in dialogue yourself and consensus among you. You do it by example, because there's no getting through this. It's an ideological wall. And the harder you push against it, the larger it'll become. Don't worry about it. But don't get pushed around, and don't let people indoctrinate you. And so the other thing you have to do is if you stand for reason and you want education, is organize yourselves that way and tell the administration, right? So now say what you have to say. And in classes where people push doctrines on you, get your damn arguments together and push back. But you have to be more articulate and more well-read and better educated than the people against whom you're pushing. But that's your job at the university, is to become articulate. And there's nothing more powerful than someone who is articulate. No one ever says that at the university.
It's true.
You go in the library and read great people. Write so that you learn how to think, and talk so that you learn how to speak. It'll make you unbelievably powerful. And that's what university is for. I can't understand why you're not told that. Nothing more powerful than articulate speech. Nothing.